Sam Cooper had $11 left, and a daughter who needed medicine before Friday. Then, the last passenger of the night left a wallet on his back seat. $50,000. Untouched. I'm Elias Mercer. I've spent years collecting stories like this one, but few surprised me the way Sam's did, because by sunrise, one quiet decision would turn a struggling cab driver into the most talked-about man in the city. It was 2 in the morning on a Tuesday, the kind of shift that ends with more silence than fares. Sam had been driving since 4 that afternoon. His last passenger of the night was a woman in a grey coat who got out 3 blocks early, paid in cash, and didn't say goodbye. He didn't notice the wallet until he pulled into the lot behind his apartment building. It was wedged between the seat and the door, black leather, heavier than it looked. The radio was still on, tuned to a late-night business report. A voice was saying something about layoffs, about a company called Marsh Holdings, about a CEO everyone in the business section called Ruthless. Sam turned it off. He had his own numbers to worry about. Sam almost drove it straight to the police station. He almost didn't open it at all. He opened it. Cash, stacks of it, still banded from the bank. He counted twice, hands not quite steady, because $11 and change was what he had left until Friday, and Friday was when Lily's insulin ran out. Behind the cash, a driver's license. The photo was a woman in her 40s, sharp-eyed, unsmiling. The name meant nothing to him. Diane Marsh. He climbed the stairs 2 at a time, quiet, and cracked open her bedroom door. Lily was asleep on her side, one arm hanging off the mattress, an orange pill bottle standing empty on the nightstand, next to a half-finished glass of water. Empty. He'd known that. He just hadn't let himself think about it until now. He sat there a long time with the engine off, the meter dark, the money on his lap. Somewhere upstairs, his daughter was asleep, and somewhere across the city, this woman didn't yet know what she'd lost. Sam zipped the wallet shut. He didn't touch a single bill, but he didn't take it to the police either. Not yet. He had a better idea, and by morning, it would put him somewhere he never expected to stand. The next morning, Sam put the wallet in the drawer under his cash register at home, the one with the broken lock, and didn't open it again until Lily had left for school. He'd learned, 2 years ago, that mornings run better if you don't think too hard. Cereal, backpack, the insulin pen checked twice in the side pocket of her lunch bag. Lily talked about a spelling test the whole walk to the corner. Sam nodded along and did the math in his head. 1 vial left, 2 days, and a refill he couldn't pay for until the wallet's owner was found, or until Friday, whichever came first. 2 years ago, it had been his wife, Rachel, doing that same math, in the same kitchen, with numbers that never worked out in time. Her sugar had climbed for weeks before anyone caught it, because the copay on the test strips kept getting pushed to next month. By the time Sam understood how sick she was, understanding didn't help anymore. He didn't tell Lily that part. He just made sure her insulin never ran that close to empty. Until now. His phone buzzed on the counter, his sister's name on the screen. He let it ring out, same as the last 4 times. They hadn't really talked since the funeral. When the hospital bills started stacking up faster than Sam could read them, she'd offered to help. $12,000, sitting right there in her savings account, no strings attached. He'd told her he didn't need charity from anyone, least of all family, and the conversation had ended the way it always did when his pride got involved, badly and too fast to take back. She still called on his birthday. He still didn't pick up. By 10 that morning, Sam was back behind the wheel, driving the same 6 blocks of downtown he'd driven for 11 years. His cab, like every cab in the fleet, ran a dashboard camera that logged the time, the route, and every stop, automatically, whether anyone remembered it was there or not. Sam had never once thought about that camera as anything other than a nuisance that ate battery. At a red light outside the Fairview Tower, he watched an old man in a security guard's uniform eating a sandwich alone on the loading dock steps, tie loosened, cap off. Executives walked past him in both directions, phones to their ears, and not one of them said a word. Sam didn't know his name. He'd probably driven past him 100 times without noticing. He noticed today, and for reasons he couldn't explain, it stayed with him for the rest of the shift. On his lunch break, parked in the same gravel lot he always used, Sam opened the wallet again. Not for the cash. He'd made his peace with that already, or told himself he had. This time, he was looking for anything that might tell him where to bring it back. Behind the driver's license, folded twice into a small square, was a bank receipt. Part of the letterhead had worn soft from being carried, but he could make out a withdrawal amount that matched the cash to the dollar. And underneath it, in handwriting that wasn't typed, a single line he couldn't quite read, before the light changed and a fare waved him down from the curb. He tucked the receipt back exactly where he'd found it, his thumb lingering on the fold a second longer than it needed to. Whatever it meant, it wasn't his business. Not yet. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Sam sat at the kitchen table with his phone and typed the name into a search bar he'd never expected to use. Diane Marsh. The results loaded fast. Diane Marsh, CEO of Marsh Holdings, called the Ice Queen of downtown real estate in one headline, the most feared executive in the city, in another. A grainy photo showed her walking out of a courthouse in sunglasses, saying nothing to a wall of cameras. Underneath, a business article from 3 weeks earlier. Marsh Holdings cuts 200 jobs in single afternoon. Sam scrolled through the comments before he could stop himself. Someone had tagged a man he recognized right away, a dispatcher from the cab company he used to carpool with, 2 winters running, laid off from his second job at a Marsh property just before Christmas. He put the phone down and looked at the wallet on the table. The cash still banded exactly the way he'd found it. It would have been easy, that night, to decide she didn't deserve it back. A woman who fired 200 people in an afternoon could stand to lose $50,000 she probably wouldn't even miss. Sam thought about the insulin pen with almost nothing left in it. He thought about Rachel and how the difference between enough money and not enough money had once cost him everything that mattered. Then he thought about who he'd be if he kept it. He didn't sleep much. By 7 the next morning, he'd showered, put on the one collared shirt he owned that didn't have a coffee stain on the sleeve, and driven to the address printed under the Marsh Holdings letterhead. A glass tower downtown, 40 stories of it, with a lobby that smelled like money and floor polish. Marble floors stretched to a reception desk shaped like a boat, and a security gate that beeped for anyone in a suit and stayed silent for no one else. Sam wiped his palms on his jeans before he crossed the lobby. The receptionist looked at him the way people look at something that wandered in off the street. Sam told her he needed to speak with Diane Marsh, that he'd found something of hers. "Ms. Marsh doesn't take walk-ins," she said, already looking past him at the elevator bank. The guard stepped in front of him before he'd made it 10 feet, one hand already resting near the radio at his hip. "You got an appointment?" Sam said no, but that it was important. The guard's face didn't change. Everybody says that. While Sam stood his ground, arguing quietly, a man in a gray suit came off the elevator with his phone pressed hard against his ear, pacing in a tight circle by the doors. "I told you, the board meets Thursday, not before," the man said, low and clipped. "If I don't have this cleaned up by Thursday, they're not going to give me another quarter. They're going to give my office to someone else. He caught his own reflection in the glass wall, straightened his tie, and softened his voice like a man rehearsing for an audience only he could see. Then he noticed Sam, and the guard, frowned, and stepped back into the elevator without another word. Sam didn't know his name. He didn't know that the man's name was Marcus Bennett, or that Bennett had spent 11 years as the person everyone above him overlooked, or that Thursday's board meeting was the last chance Bennett had to prove he still mattered before they replaced him with someone younger and cheaper. All Sam knew was that everyone in that lobby seemed to be running from something, and none of them had time for a cab driver holding somebody else's money. "I can leave a message," the receptionist finally offered, sliding a small notepad across the desk like she was doing him a favor. "Name and number. If it's really hers, someone will call." Sam wrote his name in block letters. Under it, he wrote, "Found your wallet. Nothing's missing." He almost added more, then didn't. He left the notepad on the desk and walked back out into the cold, past the guard, who still hadn't taken his hand off the radio, wondering if anyone would ever call. Thursday morning, less than 2 hours before the board meeting Marcus Bennett had spent weeks building toward, Diane Marsh finally saw the message her assistant had pulled from the front desk's overnight mail. A torn notepad page. "Found your wallet. Nothing's missing." A name and a number under it, written in block letters like a man who wasn't used to writing notes to strangers. She called the number before she'd even finished her coffee. Sam answered from the front seat of his cab, a fare halfway into a red light. Diane thanked him twice, offered to send someone to collect the wallet properly, offered him money for his trouble. Sam said the money wasn't his to take a cut of, and that he'd rather hand it back in person. "One strange question first," Diane said. "Does your cab keep any record of trips, times, locations?" Sam said it did, automatically, every fare. "Then bring your phone," she said. "Come straight to my office. I think you're the only person who can prove I didn't do what someone's about to accuse me of." What had come up was Marcus Bennett, standing in front of the board 2 hours early, holding a printed bank statement like it was a loaded weapon. By the time Sam arrived, the boardroom on the 40th floor was already tense enough to feel through the door. Bennett was mid-sentence when Diane walked in with Sam a step behind her. Something about a $50,000 cash withdrawal with no explanation on file. A wallet reported lost the same night, and an audit scheduled for next week that Diane, Bennett said, clearly knew was coming. "I'm not accusing anyone of anything," Bennett told the room, in a voice that accused Diane of everything. "I'm asking why the money disappeared the same night the wallet did, and why it took 3 days for anyone to hear otherwise." Every face at the table turned toward Diane. She opened her mouth to answer, and for the first time since Sam had met her, she looked like she didn't have one ready. This was the part where Sam could have stayed quiet by the door and let it play out without him. Instead, he stepped forward and set his phone on the table, screen up. "I can tell you exactly when I found it," he said. "My cab logs every trip automatically. Time, location, all of it. I pulled the file this morning." He turned the screen so the board could see the timestamp. 1:47 a.m., a location 3 blocks from the restaurant where Diane had eaten dinner that night, 22 minutes after the restaurant's own security camera showed her leaving. "There's no gap. She didn't go anywhere with that money except into my back seat. By accident. Same as anyone would." Bennett started to say something about coincidence. Nobody was listening to him anymore. Sam reached into his jacket and pulled out the folded bank receipt he'd carried, untouched, since the day he found it. This was in the wallet too. "Didn't feel like mine to read." He set it in front of Diane. She unfolded it, hands not quite steady, the same way Sam's had been 3 nights earlier. The receipt was for the $50,000, and beneath it, in her own handwriting, for Grace Whitfield's hospital bill. Cash only. Her husband won't take a company check. Deliver tonight. Tell no one. Grace Whitfield had worked the Marsh Holdings mailroom for 6 years before cancer took her the winter before last. Her husband had refused every offer of help since the funeral, too proud to owe anyone. Diane had planned to leave the cash at the hospital's billing office herself that same night, which was the only reason $50,000 in cash had been in her bag at all, instead of moving through a bank transfer like everything else she signed. The room went quiet. An older board member who'd known Diane the longest asked Bennett one question. How had he known the exact withdrawal amount before anyone else did? Bennett called it a routine compliance flag. It took another board member less than a minute, scrolling her copy of the finance sign-off log, to find what he hadn't mentioned. His own signature, 3 weeks old, approving that same withdrawal. Any cash transaction that size needed 2 signatures. His was one of them. He'd known exactly what the money was for since the day Diane requested it, and chosen which parts of that to bring into the room. Bennett didn't have an answer ready at all. By the end of the meeting, no one at that table was talking about an audit anymore. They were talking about Marcus Bennett's resignation, effective immediately, and about a cab driver still standing awkwardly by the door, waiting to see if anyone remembered he hadn't left yet. 2 weeks later, Marsh Holdings released a short statement confirming that Marcus Bennett was no longer with the company. It didn't explain why. Diane never told a reporter the full story, and Sam never asked her to. What she did do was call Sam herself, no assistant this time, and offer to cover Lily's medical bills outright. Insulin, appointments, all of it, for as long as it took. Sam said no, not out of pride this time, or not only pride. He'd spent 2 years afraid of exactly this kind of help, the kind that comes with an unspoken bill attached. But Diane wasn't offering charity. She was offering him a job, running logistics for the company's vehicle fleet, a real salary, insurance that actually covered test strips before they became an emergency. That Sam could take. Diane didn't push it further than that. She'd learned, somewhere along the way, that respect looked less like writing a check and more like listening when someone told you what they actually needed. He started the following Monday. The company car he was issued still smelled new, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, he didn't do the math every time Lily's prescription came due. He called his sister that same week. It wasn't a long conversation, an update on Lily, an apology that came out sideways instead of straight, an agreement to have dinner sometime soon that neither of them had scheduled yet. It wasn't fixed. It was a start, which was more than they'd had in 2 years. Rachel would have liked the car, Sam thought, the stupid, ordinary thought arriving the way it always did, uninvited, in the middle of an otherwise good day. Some things a promotion couldn't touch. He let himself think about her for exactly as long as the red light lasted, then drove on. If you've made it this far, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. And if this story meant something to you, hit subscribe. There are more like it every week. On a Tuesday evening not long after, Sam picked Lily up from school in a car that wasn't a cab anymore. She climbed into the front seat, held up a full insulin pen like it was something to show off, and asked if they could get fries on the way home. Sam said yes. The city lights came on one by one as they pulled away, catching the edge of the windshield, and for a while, neither of them said anything else at all. I'm Elias Mercer. Thank you for staying until the end of this one. I'll be back soon with another story worth telling.